Hey, Freedom Fighters! Jeremy Beland here, and welcome to another weekly episode here at REI Freedom Podcast. I am so glad to be back here with you guys this week, and I'm glad that you guys are here. Our support has been growing and growing and growing. We're already celebrated 1 year of this podcast, which is more than I ever thought it would be, and we continue to get great guests, just like the guy we have here today, which we'll talk about shortly. But I want to thank you listeners for listening every week. We hope to provide a lot of value. Feel free to reach out if there's something that we haven't talked about or discussed yet that you'd like us to. I will find a guest to talk about it. I want to provide all the value I can to keep you guys engaged so you're not falling asleep listening to me on the way to work. Obviously, with my yelling, I'm trying to help prevent that as well. So anyway, today we have a guy who is a local to my area. I think you're going to find his story very inspiring. It's really good for all you guys who want to get started into this business or have started getting into this business as house hacking and want to find a way to make it as profitable as possible as well as scaling. So today, our guest is Charlie. It's Waitt, right? Charlie Waitt?
That's it. You got it. Thank you.
All right. Okay. I pronounce names wrong all the time, so yeah. I should have probably asked you before we started recording, but Charlie Waitt. Charlie Waitt is a hospitality professional at heart. He also works at a brewery, so you got to hook up if you want to have some good beers. He found his niche in the short-term rental space where he can flex his strengths at the crossroads between hospitality and real estate. It's where the area that he loves. He works his W-2 as a brewery, and he's building and growing his short-term rental business and is building a stronger future for his wife and his two kids. I love that. So
thanks, man.
You have two kids. How old are they?
My son is 6 and my daughter will be 4 in like 2 weeks.
Amazing. All I hear is that, I'm married. I have 2 young kids. I work full time. I could never get into real estate. I don't have the resources. I don't have the money. I don't have the time. But you found a way to overcome all of that.
Yeah, it's actually more like the reason that I got into real estate. I left. I was managing restaurants for close to a decade before I took a step back and went back to like an hourly employee at a brewery. But a couple of years into my son being born, I was working 50, 60 hours managing and owning a restaurant.
It's a tough life.
It was a lot. My wife worked full time too. She's a nurse. She's amazing. And that having kids and growing the family is what made me realize that I wanted to figure out a way forward that didn't involve me sacrificing so much of my time and soul to build someone else's dream.
I love it. A great motivation. So, when we were talking off air, you said your first property was a house hack in Loudoun, New Hampshire. You were out of the northern Massachusetts area. Mm-hmm. So did you leave the restaurant field, go into becoming an hourly employee at the brewery, and then went into the real estate space?
So my first property was actually the first property you ever bought, which is Hudson, New Hampshire. It was a condo. That was
I used to live in Hudson.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we backfilled that with a long-term tenant in whatever. The first like really intentional
was it Fox Hollow?
No, it was over by Nan King or whatever it was in Hudson.
Really good sandwich parties out there when I was a kid.
Yeah, nice.
Nobody heard that, right? Okay.
No
sorry.
One. But yeah, Loudoun was the first like real intentional real estate move we made after hooking up with the guys at Candor Realty and going to the simplified management or simplified real estate meetings, starting listening to Bigger Pockets and all that. House hacking was really forefront on my mind and how to take the next step moving forward. It was an interesting timing because things at the restaurant that I was a minority partner at, my relationship with that partner was deteriorating rather rapidly for reasons we won't get into. But we had the Loudoun house under contract. And with just that knowledge, I turned my keys in and gave my notice.
Wow.
Just knowing that I was going there while the house was under contract. A little bit of fallout happened with the lender and underwriting and all that stuff. Yes,
You're going to
Um,
screw up all your financing here and quit your
yeah,
job right in the
yeah,
final
yeah,
stretch.
yeah. It could have gone a lot worse than it did. Luckily, like I said, Lindsay, my wife, is a nurse.
Yeah, so she got
Um,
an income.
she had, yeah, so she had a good W-2 income. We got our rate was at 3%, so we didn't need
Amazing.
like, yeah, so we still qualified and everything was fine. But I wouldn't recommend doing it that way, but that's the way I did it.
So, Charlie, were you living in the condo in Hudson when you bought this place?
Yes, when Lindsay and I got engaged, that was the first property we bought together.
All right, so you're
Um,
you're living in Hudson. You have a
so
condo.
yeah, so that was the first property we bought together. When we moved out of that, we lived in a single family house in Pelham for a
Okay,
while as well.
okay.
So when we lived in Pelham, we rented out Hudson, and then in late 2021, we sold both of those properties. Um, Part of the money went to buying that house in Loudon, and the other part of it, which I don't think we'll get into, maybe we will, but the other part of it went into buying a 9-unit building in Laconia, which
Wow.
is not the direction we were going here, but that was part of it as
Yeah,
well.
I think we have to talk about that as well. All right, so
Okay,
I
that's
just I
fine.
want to make sure I can understand the journey. So you're
Yeah.
living in um, Hudson, and then
Hmm.
you move out of that, put a long term tenant into that condo, and
Correct.
then you go and buy a single family, and then you live in the
Hmm.
single family, getting income from the condo, and just say,
Hmm.
well, we have this opportunity to go house hack because I'm learning from the guys at Simplified Real
Hmm.
Estate and Cameron Real Estate about house hacking. And if you guys don't know what house hacking is buying a multifamily, more than one unit, and living in one side and renting out the other side, and having those tenants pay for your rents. And sometimes you can add, equity to these properties by forcing equity by renovating them as along the way. But sometimes they're kind of turnkey. And in this situation, you said you bought this off the MLS, correct?
I did. Yeah, I bought Loudon off MLS.
So you found it off the MLS and you said, all right, let's sell our two properties. We're going to get a ton of equity. And you
Hmm.
said, I have so much equity. We can not only house hack, but we can buy a 9-unit in
Yeah.
Laconia, a
Yep.
couple towns away. And we're
Yeah.
leaving Southern New Hampshire behind us, and we're moving on
Yeah.
to bigger and better things around the racetrack.
Yep.
So you moved into this house hacking situation in Loudon,
Yep.
and it was a large single family with an in-law. Is that correct?
That's right.
So tell us how you planned on house hacking that property.
Yeah. So when we bought it, there was the gentleman that owned it lived in the main house. He was a single guy living in, his portion of the house was 3,600 square feet. And he had a friend that was renting out the in-law apartment on the first floor, which was another one bed, one bath, full kitchen, like 600 square feet. But he, since he purchased it, obviously he was super equity rich in the house. And he had the goal of buying a fifth wheel and traveling around the country
Good
for
for
his
him.
retirement. Yeah, with just him and his dog, just put all the cash in his pocket, buy a fifth wheel, and live life. So that's what he did. It was in 2021. Obviously, real estate had just skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Prices were all over the map. It was listed for $899. We got it a lot less than that. It sat for a little while. So we made an offer. It was the only offer they had, and we got the house there.
Good for you.
Yeah, and initially we kind of did the analysis where, all right, we'll get this amount for rent, which at the time we thought was 1,800, which a lot of people will think that's pretty high for a one bed, one bath in Loudon, but it comes with obviously we included everything because it's an in-law apartment and you
Right.
have
All the
to
utilities and all
all the
that.
utilities, everything, and on top of that, internet as well, because
Yep.
we have internet. Might as well let them use it. All the streaming services, private parking,
Wow.
and we're at the end of a cul-de-sac overlooking the mountains with an outdoor hot tub and fire pit. It's a really nice spot.
Sounds really nice.
Yeah. So we put someone in there for $1,800 a month, and that brought our portion of that payment to the lowest amount we'd have to pay for a property to live in that we've ever had. So
Wow.
that was kind of the idea is, okay, we've increased the value, the space that we have, the quality of the house that we have, but the money coming out of our pocket is the least it's ever been, and someone else is paying towards paying down our mortgage. So that was kind of the mindset that we had initially.
And just like that, you're officially house hacking.
That's
After
right.
learning about it, you went and took massive imperfect action. Next thing you know, you sold everything and you got yourself a house. You're house hacking,
Yep.
but didn't stop there because you said offline that you had a long-term rental tenant in there,
Mm.
but you decided you wanted to transition to short-term rental for that
Yep.
unit. Tell us
Yep.
why you made that transition and how did that happen?
So we after about 9 months of living in the house and renting that unit out long term, I also told you that it was about an hour from all our friends and family up there. We had decided that maybe we wanted to head back down south, and we were going to put the house up for sale just 9 months into living there.
Wow.
And simultaneously, our tenants were also looking for a house, and they were moving out at the same time. So we had this 60-day window of when our tenants were moving out to when we thought we would be selling this house. And I didn't want to let that space go unused for those 60 days. And when we could be collecting income of some sort while we
Sure.
waited to see what happened. So I scrambled together an Airbnb listing, just kind of made one. I went out on Facebook Marketplace, got what we needed to get to make it like a super basic, furnished rental. I think I spent a grand total of $500 on
Wow.
everything, pots, pans. We put a bunch of our own stuff down
Sure.
there, like just our own silverware, pot and pans and coffee maker. Um, just because we figured it was only going to be on there for 60 days and we'll get it all back.
Yeah, right.
So we got it up and running. I launched it. I set the unit live one night before work. I was working at a bar in Nashville at the time. Um, and later that evening, my phone started dinging with reservations. It kind of,
Wow.
it just blew up immediately, it felt like.
That's great. So you decided, all right, short-term rental it is, but you decided to keep that property and not sell in 60 days. So what
That's
happened?
correct. So, like I said, almost immediate booking up, and we said, all right, we gotta wait this out and see where it goes, especially if we're going to be bringing in that much more money compared to
The
what we were
1800.
getting compared to the 1800, right? Um, at first, I didn't really know much about the pricing. I didn't research much into what the comps were
Sure.
of other units. So we started out low, and we were getting about 1,800 those first few months, which was great because I just wanted to scrap together a couple hundred
Sure.
before we sold. But pretty soon, we're averaging 21, 22, 2,300 a month within the
Wow.
first couple months, and booking out at 95 to 100%. So
Wow.
we're like, all right, we're gonna stick around for a little while longer. I went through quite a few price increases. Um, I started, I think, at like $59 to $69 a night in that unit. And by, within 12 months, I was up closer to $129 a night
Double.
yeah, almost doubled the prices, still booking out 95%,
Wow. Amazing.
which still tells me that I'm underpriced, even today. Um, so, now we're taking in 3,500, close to $4,000 a month on it.
Off of
Um,
one
off of a
little
six, off of
in-law
a
unit.
yeah, off a one
Wow.
bedroom, one bath, little
Wow.
600 square foot unit,
Wow.
and it's paying our mortgage and most of our utilities.
I was gonna say now
So
you're like living for free with that
now
extra
I'm
two
now
grand, right?
yeah now yeah exactly now I'm living for free in a 4,200 square foot house at the end of a cul-de-sac overlooking the mountains.
If,
Uh,
if that could only happen to all of us, I mean, that's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
That's so cool. And
yeah,
it would have never happened if you didn't just take the dive. Everybody,
right,
and I'll let you finish, but a lot of people
yeah,
have to make sure they have everything figured out before they take action. But
yeah,
I can already tell, Charlie, you're not one of those guys. You're like, I figured it out enough. We're just going to do it. We'll figure out more as we get going.
yeah.
And that's obviously served you very well.
Yeah. Yeah, in this aspect, it certainly did. We've done other things in the past where it didn't work out quite as good, but it's about knowing when to cut the cord when you
Yeah,
have to, and
sure.
knowing when to double down on stuff. And in this case, we doubled down on it because after about a year of us really hammering it home, we decided to take that unit and what was already working well, make it work even better. And we did a total gut job of the unit. It didn't necessarily need it, but I just wanted to bring it up to that next level. And
Yeah.
because it was generating this amount of income,
Make
I
it
knew
really
it would,
nice.
yeah, make it really nice, add equity to the property, brighten it up a lot, and and make it something that people really enjoy and really wow people, rather than just a place for someone to come crash for a couple nights.
Yep.
So we spent about 25 grand overhauling the whole thing, new floors, new bathroom, new kitchen, paints, everything inside, all appliances, everything.
Yeah.
With just simply with the goal of raising the prices about $30 a night to make back that amount of money over the course of 4 years. I figured
Okay.
a 25% return, on that renovation would be great, and that's where it brings us to now, where that unit gets $129 to $170 a night, depending on the time.
Amazing. Now you don't live in that property anymore, so you're on to
We do
another
not.
house hack.
Yep.
So what are you doing with the 4,200 square foot house that you were living in?
Yeah. So back in March, we purchased the house I'm in now. This is in Salem. It's another house hack with an in-law apartment. This one has 2-bedroom unit, in-law side by side, which was one of the requirements, because I didn't want to live on top of a unit anymore, because
Sure.
my anxiety tells me like I got to tiptoe around everything and
Yeah,
not
yeah,
disturb the
yeah.
people
No way to
underneath.
live,
Yeah,
especially with kids.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, we're in another house hack, and obviously didn't want to give up that property up in Loudon.
Sure.
I love it;
Yes.
it's gorgeous,
And it's
and
providing great income.
it's working, right? We have a proof of concept. Just that 600 square foot unit, one bed, is covering the mortgage. So we figured that we'd keep that, and we'd again double down on it. And we did some touch ups on the inside. It was the first time I've tried my hand at doing some of the renovations myself, put in the flooring, the paint, all sorts of stuff. We furnished the whole thing, and we launched the entire house on Airbnb on June 1st. Now we don't do we could, for like highest and best use, we could technically run it as 2 separate units where you could rent the top and someone else could rent the bottom. But I avoid that because I don't want the conflict of 2 different guest groups being there at the same time. So now we have a parent listing, which you can rent the whole house, and then 2 like sister listings where it'll block off the other one. So if you rent just the top of the house, it'll block off downstairs. If you rent just downstairs, it'll block off the rest of the house, or you can rent the whole house.
Wow. And is this house still cash flowing, paying for itself, even though you're not living on the one side anymore?
Yeah, it's doing well.
Amazing.
Yeah, so the way we have it set up for the calendar for guests to book is that the calendar goes out 2 years for the whole house in the top half, and then any dates that are unbooked within 3 months, that's when the in-law calendar opens up. So that starts to fill in all the gaps, because we already know that listing books up 90 to 100%.
Right.
So we can wait within that 3 months to open those dates up, to be our safety net if the whole house isn't booking up. But November is shaping up to be our best month, because we don't rent out both units at the same time, and we launched on June 1st. There wasn't a lot of open dates to book the house through the summer because the suite was already booked.
Sure.
The in-law was already booked out. So we started getting more bookings in November, December, now January for the whole house. And November's shaping up to be the best month we're going to have there.
It's amazing.
I'm guessing we'll probably do $7,500 to $8,000 in November.
Woo!
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. So you buy this $900,000 property off the MLS. You got it for obviously less, just a house hack, and now you've turned it into a short-term rental. And as a short-term rental, you get, it kind of hits the people that want to have a large house for a whole family to stay, or just the people who are just looking as a couple or one person looking for the small little thing to get away. You can hit them both, but either way, whether you do one or the other, it brings in so much cash flow. It not only pays for itself, but you're making good money. And obviously, if you're doing $8,000 in 1 month, and obviously not every month will be like that, but it's showing to provide consistency throughout the year with all these bookings, just in Loudon, New Hampshire, which is amazing. So you house hack. So you moved to Salem. You're house hacking this one. Are you with the in-law on the side, are you short-term renting that now as well?
No, I think the long term market in Salem is good enough where the rent we bring in from that unit is good enough where I don't think it warrants trying to get that extra from short-term rental. It doesn't warrant the extra work and the extra setup.
Sure.
Where we're getting a really decent rent from a two-bedroom here. Could we get $700 a month more doing short-term rental and
Yeah.
then putting in all the extra work of the turnovers and all that? Maybe,
Not worth
but
it.
not worth it when we're
Yeah.
already getting that great rent, and the entrance situation isn't ideal for short-term rental.
Okay.
It's short-term rental is a lot more about hospitality and making sure
Sure.
your guests are comfortable and happy at all times. Where I don't think that's a hindrance to what would be a guest, but not necessarily a long-term tenant who just kind of lives that way. I mean, they enter through the garage. It would just be tough.
Yeah, of course.
And it does great enough as a long-term
Well,
rental.
Charlie, listen, I know, you're probably pretty good at the restaurant business, and leaving that restaurant business was probably good in some ways, but really stressful and and challenging in other ways.
Mm.
But it seems like real estate's much more your wheelhouse than the restaurant business, because I don't know if you were making that kind of money, not working so hard in the
Yeah.
in the restaurant space, because you're working a ton of hours. Now you have a house that's, within a couple of years, making really good money for you guys, and help, now you're pulling income out of that. You're still working, your wife's working. Now you're house hacking another house, which is probably making you live pretty close to rent free now, which is crazy. So you have these two properties, and on top of that, you still have a 9-unit in Laconia.
No, we sold that last September. That's like I said. Sometimes we try a lot of things and cut the cord when it doesn't work. I said my strength is in hospitality, and that 9-unit building was in downtown Laconia, and it was a tough property.
Yeah, Laconia's
Yeah, and it is not my strength to deal with that. I learned this obviously by trying it. It is not my strength to deal with that kind of property. When we sold our first property ever, which was the Hudson condo that we lived in, we did really well on that. We used a 1031 exchange to get into the 9-unit in Laconia.
Okay.
And it was, I thought it was a great value add. I thought it had a ton of potential, but quickly learned that managing a property like that was an entirely different ball game than the only thing I'd managed prior to that in real estate was the condo.
Sure.
Which was a nice condo in a good spot in Hudson, where I had a single woman who was an accountant living there. It was super simple.
You didn't think about using a property manager to handle all the headaches?
We did. I went through a couple of them and quickly learned that a lot of them are not great. And
they're not great. Me too. I've learned that the hard way as well. Especially up there, you have limited choices.
Yeah. Lot of drugs, a lot of people not paying rents, just a lot of trouble. And
for our listeners, downtown Laconia is kind of like lower C to D class type properties. It would be not an area that you definitely would want to stay the night with your wife or significant other. That's for sure. But you probably got a good deal on the property, but now you know why.
Yeah. It was an attractive price for 9 units. Wanted to save the money on the taxes using the 1031 exchange. I almost backed out last minute, and I got talked back into it. I talked myself back into it really within a week, and went back after it. And hindsight being 2020, would I do it again? I'm not really sure. I got out of it pretty much unscathed because we did sell it for more than we bought it for, because we did renovations, we did stabilize some of the rents. It just ended up being a management nightmare, and it took years off my life in the year and a half that I owned it.
I'm sure.
But we got, like I said, we got out of it with a relatively inexpensive education.
That's great, and sometimes the education we learn in this business is expensive, right? And you're gonna pay to learn in this business one way or another, either through making the mistakes yourself or paying for somebody to teach you not to make the mistakes. And sometimes it's a combination of both. For me personally, so now that your house hacking in Salem, you got your property up in Loudon. Where's Charlie and the family going from here? What's the goal?
So I just started reaching out to some people. I'm looking to take on some clients as a co-host. So I am trying to find other Airbnb hosts that want to become more hands-off or want to improve their listing, and I'm looking to take over those listings for them for a percentage fee, a management fee. I see other people doing it. I like I, s- I think I have a pretty good track record. For my results on Airbnb, with my occupancy percentage, with my guest satisfaction rating. I've been a super host for all 8 quarters that I've been on Airbnb. Airbnb has given me the designation of top 10% home and guest favorite. So any accolade that you can get on Airbnb, I've gotten it so far. So I'm really trying to market myself to people that want to kind of bring their listing to the next level and be more hands off. Or another target audience is someone that is moving and doesn't necessarily need to sell their house, and now we can maybe utilize that house to bring in income rather than getting rid of it or just sitting there vacant and not doing anything for them.
All right, so Charlie, if any of our listeners are listening to this and saying, "Oh my God, I could use somebody like Charlie to do that with my property,"
Yeah.
how would they be best to find you?
Sure. I'm on Facebook, Charlie Waitt. I also have 2 other Facebook accounts for the Airbnb. One is Loudon Mountain View Suite. The other is Loudon Mountain View Home. You can look up either of those Facebook profiles, shoot me a message, or send me an email. My email is cwaittcwaitt429@gmail.com.
Love it. And we'll put that in the show notes as well. All right, I got 2 more questions for you as we wrap up this podcast.
Sure.
So for anybody who's brand new getting started and is looking at your journey saying, wow, that's amazing, what is some advice you'd give to somebody who hasn't pulled the trigger yet but wants to get started? What would you say to them knowing what you know now?
Yeah. I would say that you'll always be stuck if you never pull the trigger. They call it paralysis by analysis for a reason. I think you got to take a stab at it and figure out what works, because the first step to being good at something is sucking at it, and you're going to suck at it for a second, and then you're going to learn, and then you're going to get better. And the only way to get good at it is to go through it, make the mistakes, and the key at that point is to push through those mistakes and not just stop there.
Love it. Great answer. Okay, so we call this show REI Freedom. We call it, and if you've listened to the podcast before, I've asked this question numerous times. For Shelly and I, freedom through real estate investing, is really about time freedoms and building a life that we can have on our own schedule and things of that nature. But it means different things to different people. Charlie, what does REI Freedom mean to you?
I want to be able to decide that in a day or 2 days or a week in advance that me and the family are going somewhere, and I don't have to ask permission. I don't want to have to ask permission from a boss or anyone else other than my family to be able to do something or go somewhere, or how to spend my time. That's what I think true freedom is being able to do whatever we want on our
When we
terms.
want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What we want when we want, and not needing permission from anybody.
Love it. I haven't had to ask for time off in over 5 years, and it's amazing. I remember those days. That is true freedom. Well said. All right. Well, that is great, Charlie. Wonderful story. We'll put all the stuff in the show notes. I thank you for being a guest here today.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeremy. I appreciate it.
All right, guys, that's the end of this episode. What an inspiring episode about house hacking and short-term rentals. If you guys want to find properties that, you want Charlie to co-host or manage for you, well, you need to find them through me. I can teach you how to go find those great properties through our coaching program at REI Freedom. So if you want to book a discovery call, learn how to get these great properties, and have Charlie go out and manage them for you so you can make money, so you can have more time freedom, go to reifreedom.com/apply, and we can have a quick call, see if we're a fit for each other. But until next week, guys, again, thank you for listening to every week, and we'll see you then. Take care, guys.
Take care. Thanks.